Hi there. Welcome to another Delightful Discussions. I'm Mariah Young, your host. I have a question for you. Have you ever dreamt of being a speaker? If you have, I'm super excited to share with you my guest today. And stay tuned. We'll be right back. Hi, I am Mariah Young again. I am the First Impressions Director at 48 Days DISC team, where we help team leaders communicate and motivate so that they can create their dream team. Today, I am actually coming with you to you with a wonderful, wonderful guest. You guys are going to love her. I hope that you marked this in your calendar and are joining us today. But even if you're hitting us up on the replay, please make sure to leave your comments and questions for Jen. I will be checking those and forwarding them on to her. But today I am bringing to you Jen, the Iron Jen McDonough, who is a renowned speaker, and she is the head coach of Jane Atkinson's Wealthy Speaker School Emerging Speakers course. So you guys are not going to want to miss out on this. I love everything that Jen shares. She is super generous with her information. And I tell you what, when she speaks, she is dropping gold. So do not miss out. Make sure you grab yourself a cup of coffee or tea and listen in. You're going to love this. All right. Without further ado, I am bringing Jen McDonough. Woohoo!
Hey, Mariah. Hey, gang. Thanks for hanging out with the cool kids here.
Yes.
This is an honor.
Thank you for joining me. Oh my gosh. I told Ashley last time when she was on, I was like, I need a cheering squad to bring you on.
You should have like a football roaring thing, like a canned roar.
I love it. I love it. Well, let's dig right in because I love your story. I love the stuff that you share, everything, and I don't want to miss out on even a minute. So can you share with us? Let's start with your personal story. Can you share that with us?
Yeah. So our family is known. We live in Minnesota, and our family is most known for paying off over $212,000 worth of debt and medical expenses in 4 years. Whoop whoop!
Wow.
It really had a dream fairy tale ending, like it really did. But it started off as very much a nightmare. But we got through that. In addition to that, which again, our stories shared locally, nationally, and internationally. We were actually in a documentary. We had a film crew from the BBC come over and actually film our family as a part of this documentary. So it was very interesting. But also besides that, I'm an 8-time national weightlifter, 2-time U.S. Olympic Festival winner, and Minnesota Hall of Fame athlete. I'm an Ironman. I'm also a volunteer firefighter. But the job or role that I love most is getting to be mom to 4 kids. And Bob and I, my awesome husband, have been married for 30-something years. So that's the roles I enjoy the most.
Wow. You hit my question too, which is not fair. I didn't send it to you, so you didn't know I was going to ask you because, yeah, I wanted to know why you're called the Iron Jen. So you kind of said it already, but can we just hear that again? Because that's amazing.
I'm kind of a badass, I'm told.
You are.
Even though my kids are like, Mom, you know. but yeah, I've gotten to do a lot of things. But that is how I got my nickname, through the weightlifting journey, through the Ironman journey, through paying off a ton of debt. And today I also own my own business. I forgot to mention is I speak and train all over the country. Resiliency is my lane or my topic. So resiliency for oneself, resiliency for teams, and also the resilient relationships. And that's really my favorite thing to talk about is when I'm out speaking and training for groups. And primarily I work with groups that serve our communities, such as whether it be colleges or credit unions, or I work with a lot of first responder related groups, but I also work with corporate groups too. I'm actually speaking to a cement industry later on this week. So that's kind of fun.
Wow. That's incredible. Oh my gosh. Yes. I love that. Okay. So you have done these amazing things. Your family first. So family first. You guys paid off a ton of debt. I mean, over 200 grand.
It was amazing.
Incredible.
And that's really how I got linked up with Dan Miller's world, with the 48 Days world. And, you know, I was never familiar with DISC, Mariah, at all. That was just something I didn't know about. And Dan and Ashley and the crew really introduced me to that. And, you know, I've got so much to share on that. And it's not only helped my business, but it's really helped my family. And, you know, I just think everyone would benefit, whether you're a leader in the community, an HR person in your organization, and you're filling the roles and how people are wired. But also, you know, if you're an entrepreneur and you're selling to people or you're connecting to people and you have to connect with them very quickly, man, there's no better way to go about it for DISC. But I find that the relationship side of things, oh my gosh, it has saved so much drama in our family's life. And that has really showed up, you know, in everything that we're able to do in serving our community and building the business of my dreams. And it's just really helped us in so many ways. So I think that honestly, there's not many things that I say, oh, everyone would benefit, but truly, when it comes to this, it's amazing, whether you use it professionally or you use it for personal reasons.
I love that. And I think getting out of debt, we also got out of debt, not quite as much as you did, but there's knowing your personality and like what motivates you, how to continue to work. I learned a lot about myself during that process, because I realized I'm a big spender. on Dave Ramsey's scale of spender or saver. Yeah, I'm a spender. And I like to be rewarded. So that kind of plays into my high I parrot personality. I like rewards. I like public, what's that? Public
accolations.
Yes.
Yeah. You know, that's so funny you say that, Mariah. When we started off our debt journey, I'm a high DI and my husband's a high SC. And so when we started our debt journey, I wanted to take it, and two, my motivation was, and my husband's as well, is we had a son that was diagnosed with a lifetime medical condition. That's really what started all this. And I wanted to take all the fun out of the world, and like we did, every penny did go off towards paying off debt or investing in, you know, the business and growing that side of it. But we paid it off penny by penny. But when we started off, my dream was to be debt free and to find a cure for our son. Now, my husband's dream was the same, but how we went about it was completely different. Like, I wanted to strip all things out of our life, and he was like, oh my gosh, he wasn't quite there yet. He's like, what's going on? And so we were, for a couple months, we have a very, very strong marriage. For a couple months there, that was pretty rocking. You know, when you think of, okay, we're dealing with the emotional stuff with our son, and we're dealing with all of a sudden the financial stuff, and you know, we react different ways when we're under stress. And now looking back, it's so easy to see, oh, of course, as a SC, he reacted this way. You know, like for him, he saw us living in a van down by the river and our house being taken away like that, because it's loss of security, right? As a high C. Mine was being taken advantage of. And so even though I didn't understand anything about what our son had, within the first 10 minutes, I was telling the medical staff what they were going to do and how they were going to cure my son. And they were going to do this and that, because I felt totally taken advantage of. And now just understanding that has really, man, this stuff is so powerful.
Yeah.
It does more than just, you know, sales, or more than just work and filling the roles, but it really helps you to understand how you're wired and how you want to react. Like, hey, do I want to react out of a knee-jerk reaction, or do I want to act with intention? Like, and in my talks and trainings, I talk about that. Listen, we can, you know, do those knee-jerk reactions that we all do, or we can say, listen, am I interested in meeting that person where they're at? Do I love that person enough to meet them where they're at? And maybe the answer is no sometimes, or which is okay. Yeah. Or maybe, do I love the mission? Like, do I love the mission of that organization to meet that person, that staff member, that team member where they're at? Or do I love the mission of something in my personal life? Like, is it something that it's a value that I believe in, or something that I believe in? Am I willing to look past that person to look at the mission? So this stuff is so beautiful
so good
on understanding DISC, just from a personal point, but also from a business point. It's beautiful.
I love that. Well, and then let's add on. So we talked about your debt, then all of your accomplishments and your runs and the Ironman and like all these crazy things that you have done. I remember the first time I met you and you were so humble too. Cause I was like, oh, is there a reason that your name is the Iron Jen? You're just like, oh yeah, just, I've done a few Ironmans. I'm like, what? So can you share a little bit more about that? I feel like personality wise, being a DI, I think that's really important to understand how you're able to accomplish all that too.
Oh, absolutely. And as a D, you guys, I need to have a medal for everything I do. Like, I've got my little medal wall. Most of us Ds, we've got our medal wall somewhere. Like, we've got the certificates on the wall or whatever, but really understanding that and understanding how our loved ones are wired. And I'm going to speak just for a moment to the entrepreneurs out there.
Yes.
Is very briefly, when we paid off our debt, and we wanted to, as a family, we said, hey, listen, it's important for us to make the impact and go share a message of hope and inspiration and saying, hey, this is how you can be resilient in your personal lives, and this is how you can help your team members become more resilient, so that, all the organizational benefits, you have less stressed employees, greater safety, less staff turnover, all those good things. But in learning to go from a full-time employee to all of a sudden you're working on your own, it comes with not only the logistical things like, hey, budgets and stuff, but it comes with the emotional things. And my husband, you guys, I love him. Like, he's just adorable. He has worked for the same company for 38 years. He's amazing at what he does. Like, he is amazing. And he'll retire from that company. Me as a DI, that we're just wired different. And so when I went off on my own, like, we're doing it as a family, but in reality, like, I'm the one stepping away from that role. That was my dream, is to be out there speaking and to be training and do all these things. In reality, when my husband was excited about that part of it, he was scared to death of the financial part of it. Like, that was a big leak. And so as an entrepreneur, understanding how your loved ones are wired is so essential when you're trying to do this, because listen, your dream can be your loved one's nightmare. And in my case, that's how it was. Is, again, when I would talk about this, all of a sudden Bob would get really agitated, and I'd be like, dude, what's your problem? And then I would get agitated, and then it would kind of go into this, like, I don't know, like button heads. But then when I stopped, and this is exactly what I teach in my sessions, is when you stop and take a breath and say, is it them or is it me? I could look at him and go, well, of course it's him. Like, it's his problem. But wait a minute, could it be me? And by continuing to bring up, hey, I'm going to leave, we're going to do this, it was touching on his fear triggers. So he was picturing us, again, living down by that van down by the river. And so, as just a bit of advice for entrepreneurs, when if you're looking to make that leap, or maybe you're looking to make a leap to another job or whatever, and there's some risk involved, if you are a person who doesn't mind risk, you like challenges, you're that DI or whatever it is, and you have a loved one that's maybe a little less risk tolerant, that's maybe an S or a C, out of respect and honor, realize that sometimes our dreams can be their nightmares, and vice versa. My husband's dream of me, working alongside him for 38 years, that was my nightmare. And so really it comes down to that honor and respect type of thing. So just a little tidbit, that if you are the one with wanting to make that transition, is go a little bit further. It takes a little bit of time, but just realize that, let's not set off those fear triggers or stress triggers of our loved ones. Like, sometimes it takes a little bit of energy, and take care of yourself so you can do that. So
I love it. I love it. That's such good advice. I'm a high ID and my husband's a DC. So yes, we definitely have that in our family too.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yes. I'm going to go ahead and share Jen's website here. If you guys want to learn more about hiring Jen as a speaker and just seeing her information, theironjen.com is where you want to go. Is that correct?
Yes, theironjen.com. And if you're like, hey, I'm not sure if this is a good fit or not, I'll be honest. You know, I work with groups all over the country. And I'll have folks, there's a next steps button that you can book a time to say, hey, is this a good fit or not? And believe me, I will be honest, if I'm not a good fit, I have lots of colleagues in my space that are, and I'm good to go. Dan, that's one thing that Dan has taught me over the years, Mariah, is to really live in that abundance.
Yeah.
And rather than that scarcity mode. So that really helps. And again, understanding how you're wired is so essential to understanding that. So again, I could talk for days on that.
I love it. I love it. So I am going to say really quickly, guys, if you're watching, please make sure to say hi. Let us know. The one thing I don't love about StreamYard is it doesn't always show me who's watching. So very often I will find out someone was and didn't know it. So please make sure to say hello, share your questions in the comments. We're going to move into the next part about Jen's business. We're going to speak about the wealthy speaker. And I know you guys, especially if you've dreamt about becoming a speaker, you're going to want this information. So please make sure that you share your questions with us. Again, if you're on the replay, I will be monitoring the questions. So of course I will send forward those as well. But Jen, can you share with us? So you've got your speaking business and now you're on quite the endeavor, quite the adventure. So you are the head coach of the Jane Atkinson's Wealthy Speaker School, and you work, sounds mainly, and I could be wrong, so I don't want it to go too far, but with the emerging speakers. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so I hired Jane a long time ago as one of my coaches. So I've worked with coaches, and that's one thing that I've always believed in. I've had a coach since I was basically 17 in some area in my life. And I think in order to be a good coach, you need to have a coach. Like, you need to be willing to be coached. And Jean was my coach early on, and I just learned so much with her about the speaking business. I went through her Wealthy Speaker School at the time. And then eventually, long story short, Jane brought me on as a team member, and fast forward a couple years, and I absolutely love leading up the Wealthy Speaker School Emerging Speaker Program. It's so amazing. It gives me just as much joy to be coaching speakers who are wanting to live out their dreams in learning how to become a professional speaker. It gives me just as much joy being on stage as it does coaching them. And honestly, Mariah, some days while I love doing what I do, it's such an honor to get to meet with groups and to get to share some amazing things that'll really help their teams grow stronger, their communities grow stronger. Getting to help those speakers make that impact is really a thrill, because you get to see your ripple effect. Like, there's not oftentimes, depending on the roles or the jobs that we do, that you get to see that ripple effect necessarily. And getting to see the speakers just making the impact on the world around us, it's a pretty special place to be in. So we have speakers that come into the school. They may have never did a talk before. A lot of them have never gotten paid. I just worked with one of our speakers this last weekend, not weekend, but this last week. She's in we have some private group coaching clients, and her first gig just got booked at $7,500. She's amazing at what she does. She's a mindset coach turned speaker. We've got other speakers that, they speak on all kinds of lanes. It's very interesting to see. We had another speaker. He was in our group coaching program. He just had his best year ever. He had 7 full-time gigs booked in 5 days that were well over 5,000 each. And so that was his best month ever, best week ever. So it's just really fun to see speakers. And then you have other ones that are, they're going out and making their first $500. And it's just so fun, because the speakers who or experts who want to become speakers, or the folks that just they want to learn about this. It's just so exciting. You could be starting at the $100 level, or the like Allie at the $7,500 level. It's just fun, no matter where they're at in their journey. It's just a joy to get to see them pushing forward. So we teach all about the business side of speaking. So I'm not a coach. If you came to us and said, listen, I need to learn how to breathe while I'm on stage, or I need to learn how to move, nope, not my gig. Like, we have presentation coaches that we can refer you to, but we're all about the business side of speaking. So where do you find the business? What do you speak on that pays? Where do you find those audiences? How do you coordinate with event coordinators? And going back to the DISC again, Mariah, even if I didn't use DISC at all in my business, just being able to connect with event coordinators. And here's a tip for any entrepreneur out there, or any HR person: when you're able to meet people where they're at, it allows you to have, should you choose to take it, it allows you to have empathy and to see things from their side. And man, you can move the ball so much forward. And when you're looking at, hey, that mission, am I interested in meeting the mission of whatever that mission is, or the person? That's a pretty amazing place to live in, to be at. And that's what I love about DISC, is it's simple, it's easy to understand, and it really allows, I truly think it's a world-changing thing, that we can bring things like kindness and empathy in the world when we understand the motivations behind why people do what they do. And DISC is a tool to do that, which is just lovely.
I love it. I love it. And I'm going to go ahead and pop in here the information on how to, and this definitely didn't format very well. That's not cute. Okay, maybe I'll have to play around with that for a minute. But this is the best way. Can you share about what you have shared with our audience?
Oh, yeah. So if you're interested in the Wealthy Speaker School, come on over, check us out, wealthyspeakerschool.com. In my heart of hearts, this is the best school when it comes to the business side of speaking. Between Jane Atkinson and I, we have I think we're over 50 years of experience. So I come from the speaker side, building this business up from 0 to 6 figures. Jane comes at it from the Speakers Bureau side, the side of speaker agent and such. And we've worked with speakers that are from 0 to $1 million. So it's a pretty awesome place. But it is, whether you're a beginner or you're an intermediate speaker, we have something for everyone. So if you're interested, set up a next steps call. You can do that through the wealthyspeakerschool.com. If it's speaking you're interested in, training or keynoting, you can reach out to me at theironGem.com. And if it's of interest, obviously, set up a time and we'll see if it's a good fit. So those are the 2 links.
Awesome. Yeah. And I went ahead and reposted this first link again, so you guys can see it. But this is where you want to go. It's a webinar.
Yes, the webinar is awesome. If you're like, hey, I'm not sure, whatever, this is a little bit more advanced webinar. Okay. But even if you're beginning, I think you're gonna take away some great takeaways. And Jean and I do webinars, quite often. So get plugged into the speakerlauncher.com world, get on the list, and we'll send you when those webinars are.
I love it. I even just checked out a podcast that you shared at one point, and it was so valuable. I was very happy to be on the list now, because I'm like, I want to get all the things. I want all the podcasts. Like, this is such great info. I can tell that you and Jane align in that you guys share so much valuable information all the time. I love that.
She's amazing. It's been, it's pretty amazing when you get to learn from people you've looked up to for years, and I think of what Dan has done for my world, my family's world, and Jane, and the Kent Julians of the world, and the Kelly Swansons. Like, it's pretty an amazing place to be in.
Yeah, I agree. All right, now you've already talked so much about DISC. But let's do an actual chat about that. And one thing that I loved that you shared with me right away was that you don't call it the DISC actually in your teachings. Can you share that and then share how you use that?
Yeah, so I'm working with an event coordinator at a college system here coming up here in the next couple weeks, and they were putting together their day-long program for their group. And with every group that I work with, I not only want to deliver a great session, have them walk away with some great tips, but really my goal is to make sure it's a good fit, but to create a pretty amazing experience for that session. Because you know you have speakers sometimes that come in and they do their spiel and then they're out of there, and attendees are on to the next thing. And my goal is to really not only give them those good tips so that they have one or two things that you can remember a month later. Like that's pretty hard to do, but also to make it really engaging for those attendees. But my goal is to make my event coordinators look like rock stars. So when I'm meeting with an event coordinator, I always want to understand, like, hey, are you putting together an agenda, or is the agenda set, and what's going on before and after, to understand from those attendees' points of view. And when I was talking, actually, two event coordinators I'm speaking to, they both reached out within 2 weeks of their event to have me come speak to their group. But both of them were struggling because they have some sort of icebreakers that they needed to put together. And I'm like, listen, let's put together a session where I'm using DISC as a tool, and I'm using my formula, which my formula is all about, mission, creating margin in our lives, and mission, margin, and the mindset piece. And my topics always revolve around the resiliency piece, resiliency relationship. But in the being able to bring DISC in as a tool, I'm saying to them, listen, let me take the burden of doing the icebreaker speech. And one of the things I was talking about with one of the event coordinators that they had done last year is they said, well, we did this icebreaker exercise where we made people get together with people they didn't know, and then they got up and talked about what they did. And I said, listen, why don't you let me do that icebreaker thing? I said, it's a lot different when you have a professional speaker like myself coming in and we're like, hey, we're going to do this, versus, an HR person saying, hey, we're going to do this. Because you still get the eye rolling for a minute in any of those sessions.
Sure.
But it's different when you have an outside person coming in and you're like, hey, this is what we're going to do, versus having an HR person come in and do it. So, when you're looking at DISC, you can teach DISC, and you can certainly teach DISC in your internal organizations, as such as an HR department, but it is a completely different experience when you have someone from the outside come in, because it can take some of that awkwardness away. Like it's just different. I can tell them what to do and they'll do it without whining. But if say an HR person comes in and tries to do it, they're like, oh, there's a history there, and they don't have that history necessarily as me. So I use DISC as a tool in the sessions, and what I'm really focused on is, again, for me, it's all about resiliency and really resilient relationships. And so I'm looking at creating an amazing experience where I can have attendees, learn from me, but then they learn from each other in the sessions oftentimes. But what's nice is that we're looking at it all about resiliency. Like, resiliency is the piece. DISC is the tool and what we can do that. If I was a sales speaker, I'd be using DISC all about sales, completely different. It's a tool that you can bring in your toolbox. So I think that it would really benefit any entrepreneur, any organization, any HR person to have this in their back pocket as a tool to use, whatever that goal is that you're trying to achieve, whether it's greater sales, maybe it's more engagement in your workforce, or maybe it's greater retention, whatever that is, that purpose can be used for that. So that's how I use that as a tool in my business. I'm all about saying, listen, how can we bring resilient relationships into our organizations, into our personal lives, so that we're not so knee-jerk reaction type reactions. Like, how can we cut down on the drama? How can we cut down on the chaos, the stress? okay, let's lower that stress, lower that chaos in those relationships so that we can meet eye to eye and really focus on what it is that really matters. And so that's how I use it. But if I, again, was working, say, with a speaker who wanted their lane or their topic was sales, we'd be looking at using DISC as saying, hey, how can you use that for greater sales type of thing? Mm-hmm. So there's that is just two examples of two different lanes of how we can use DISC in the business side of things, in saying, hey, how can I teach and train this in a different way that's not being just the DISC person? Because being the DISC person can sometimes be perceived at a lower value, because a person can say in an organization, well, I can teach DISC. And that is true.
Right.
But the experience and how that is done is completely night and day when you have a person who does this professionally and it's an outside person that you're bringing in. People are more apt to it's a different experience.
So good. So you're so right too. I think what you said about the history, all the things that go on in that work setting versus bringing someone in who, you're giving a lot of credibility to, there's a lot of, there's just not that same history. I think that is so key. You're so right. I love that. Okay. So we really have covered so much. Oh my gosh. Like, you have dropped gold in this entire thing. So thank you so much for everything. And I want to make sure that we already talked about it, but I want to make sure you really reiterate the two best ways for people to get in touch with you. I know we've got your website here, Iron Jen.
Speaking World, if you're an event coordinator, reach out again. If I'm not a good fit, I will be the first one to tell you I'm not a good fit. But I do keynotes, training sessions, seminars, all over the country. I primarily speak in the U.S. That's where I prefer to kind of keep things. And the speaking side of things, if you're an entrepreneur and you're thinking, hey, I think that speaking could be a way to amplify my message, to share that impact, you can come find us over at thewealthyspeakerschool.com.
And then, of course, also you can check out this webinar as well. So we'll post both. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much, Jen, for everything that you have shared. Honestly, this was selfish for me because I wanted to share your story with everyone. I just think everything that you have done is just so amazing, and it's so inspiring. And I hope that that's what everyone got out of this today.
Oh, Mariah, thanks. And if you're an organization or you're a speaker and you're looking to buy the profiles, like 48 Days makes it so easy. And listen, speakers, entrepreneurial folks, or anyone interested in learning about this, they have a course over at 48 Days. That's fantastic. I've done it. It's wonderful. And even if you don't use it for the business side of things, just for the personal side of things, like I always think, if it saves me one argument with a loved one, like how much is that worth to me? And I'll tell you, these days it's pretty valuable. So if it can save you one argument, even if it saved you one argument over a lifetime, a huge blow up, we're like, wouldn't that be worth it? Or wouldn't it be worth it? What is it costing your organization when you're not retaining these employees, when you have that staff turnover? So just one can save you so reach out. Mariah is so easy to work with. Aww. They're just lovely, and they'll make it work for you.
Thank you for the shout out. I appreciate it. All right, guys, if you want to get in contact, of course, the links are in the comments. If you're watching the replay, please check it out. Any questions or comments that you have, we would love, and I'd love to pass them along to Jen. And yeah, join us again next week. I thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate your being here. And Jen, thank you so much. Until next time, have a wonderful week. Bye.